Okay, so have you ever been there? That really quiet whisper deep inside your mind, just sort of saying, you do not believe. It's actually pretty common, even for people with really strong faith. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the sources you shared, articles, research looking at, faith and doubt from a biblical angle, but also psychologically. Our mission to kind of understand this inner world, figure out the difference between doubt and, well, actual unbelief. And we'll look at some key figures in the Bible who really wrestled with this stuff and find ways to keep going. Because it's these struggles, they aren't necessarily failure. They can actually be, believe it or not, catalysts for a much deeper faith. So, okay, let's unpack that first big thing. Doubt versus unbelief. We often just lump them together, right? But the sources draw a really important line. What is that distinction they're making?
Yeah, that's crucial. So theologically speaking, doubt isn't really outright rejection. It's more like a struggle, a hesitation in trust. Think of it like a bridge almost, connecting where your faith is now to maybe a more perfect faith later. One source even called it the birth pangs of deepened faith. It's an honest struggle.
Okay, birth pangs. I like that.
Right. But unbelief, that's different. It's presented as a choice, like a deliberate turning away from truth that's been shown, a sort of hardening of the heart. So the real key is the intent. When that thought, you do not believe, pops up, is it coming from a place of genuinely wanting to understand? That's constructive doubt. Or is it more like a stubborn refusal? That's closer to destructive unbelief.
That makes a lot of sense. So if doubt is this process, this wrestling, how does it usually show up? Do the sources talk about like different types?
They do, yeah. Generally, three main kinds pop up. First, there's factual doubt. This is where you have real honest questions. Things about history, logic, like, did the resurrection really happen historically? How does Genesis fit with science? You're looking for answers, intellectual ones.
Right, the head stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you got emotional doubt. This one comes more from, well, life, suffering, loss, maybe feeling like God's just absent when something terrible happens. It's less about the facts and much more about the heart.
Felt abandonment, maybe?
Precisely. And the third is volitional doubt. This is rooted more in the will, like a reluctance to obey God, maybe wanting to hold on to a particular sin. Sometimes it shows up as demanding proof, but, with the underlying decision already made not to believe no matter what, it can definitely edge towards unbelief.
Oh, okay.
And it's rarely just one type, it's often a mix. And things like being utterly exhausted or not having a supportive community, that could really magnify any of these doubts.
That's so true. External factors play a big role. Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The sources point to these huge biblical figures who went through this too. How did they handle those you do not believe moments?
Oh, absolutely. Great examples. Take Thomas, after the resurrection.
Doubting Thomas.
Yeah. He explicitly says, unless I see the nail marks, I will never believe. It's a pretty clear factual doubt, right? He needed empirical proof. And what's amazing is how Jesus responds. He doesn't scold him. He engages him directly. Put your finger here. See my hands.
He meets him right where he is.
Exactly. And that encounter leads Thomas to that incredible declaration, my Lord and my God. His doubt wasn't shut down. It was actually the path to a deeper conviction.
Wow. Okay, so factual doubt can lead to stronger faith. What about emotional doubt? You mentioned Sarah.
Yes, Sarah. God promises her a son in her old age.
Yeah.
Impossible, right? And she laughs, silently, inwardly, but she laughs, thinking, how could I?
Understandable skepticism, really.
Totally. It's pure emotional doubt based on her reality, her perception of impossibility. And again, God engages gently. He asks, is anything too hard for the Lord? And then he fulfills the promise. Her initial doubt, her laughter, didn't stop God's plan. It actually ended up highlighting his faithfulness. Even when faced with our very human limits and skepticism, patience and trust were key there.
These ancient stories feel so incredibly current. That struggle is just timeless. So what can we, listening right now, take away from this for handling our own internal dialogues?
Well, first, maybe just give yourself permission. Embrace doubt not as a failure, but as potentially a normal, even productive part of the journey. That bridge idea, it can ease some of the guilt.
Reduce the anxiety around it.
Exactly. And then spiritual practices. Prayer is huge, just talking it out, asking for guidance, for peace, meditating on scripture too, like if you're right. And community is vital. You need people around you who offer mercy and understanding, not judgment. Knowing you won't be kicked out of the struggle just because your questioning is so important.
Finding safe spaces.
Definitely. And finally, patience. Trust the process. There isn't some set timeline for getting through doubt. Look at the pattern in these stories. God remains faithful, even when his people are wrestling. Trust his faithfulness, even when your own feels shaky.
That's powerful. So wrapping up this deep dive then, that internal thought, you do not believe, it's not new, it's not unique to you, it's just profoundly human, part of the spiritual path for millennia.
hmm And not necessarily a flaw. It can genuinely be a catalyst for real growth, a stronger, more tested faith.
So maybe the question to leave you with is this. Think about Job. He questioned God, wrestled with his justice through immense suffering, but ultimately landed in trust even without all the answers. How might your own moments of uncertainty, those whispers of you do not believe, actually become pivot points? Points of encounter, maybe even transformation, leading you towards a faith that isn't just inherited or simple, but one that's deeply personal, truly tested, and much more deeply rooted because of the struggle.